Hello and welcome back to the Rope Access and Climbing Podcast. I'm your host, Mikey Stevenson, and today I'm going to be talking to Jordy Sheperd about being a mountain guide. If this is your first time here, please make sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. So stay tuned. Step into your harness and get ready for a podcast about the vertical world. We're joined here today with Jordy Sheperd from Canmore, Alberta. Can we dive into some introductions here? So for the people that are unaware of who you are.
Hi there, my name's Jordy. I'm a mountain guide based in Canmore, as Mikey said there. And I have a kind of a varied background in rope rescue, rope access. I've worked on the industrial side as well as the mountain side of things, single rope, double rope techniques, helicopter sling rescue, and quite a bit with the Avalanche search and rescue world as well.
Awesome. So what we're kind of looking at diving into tonight is, talking about what it's like to be a mountain guide. You are the first mountain guide I've been able to have on the podcast here, and thank you very much for that. And then we're, as a mountain guide, we'll kind of dive into a little bit about, what is an avalanche, and who needs to take training, and talk about those sort of subjects. So I guess diving into the first question here, what is a mountain guide for the people out there? Obviously, the majority of my following here are industrial based, fire rescue, rope access technicians, and a couple arborists as well. So diving into the climbing side, can you explain what a mountain guide is?
Sure. So a mountain guide in Canada is certified by the ACMG, the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides. And within the ACMG, we have different certification levels. If you want to become a fully certified mountain guide, internationally recognized within the International Federation of Mountain Guide Associations, of which the ACMG is a member country of, then you do the climbing side, basically summer climbing, rock, ice, and snow alpine guiding courses. So it's summer and winter on the climbing side, of course. And then you also do your winter courses, which is the ski side. And once you become a alpine guide and a ski guide, you're by default then a mountain guide.
Excellent. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about the process? Like, how long does it take to become a mountain guide in Canada? It's a pretty lengthy process, isn't it?
Yeah, it has historically been potentially lengthy. It still can be, but we have put in some timelines now in between apprentice levels and becoming certified in a level. So there's generally 3 years from when you become an apprentice as a apprentice rock guide, apprentice ski guide, apprentice alpine guide. And then we also have other categories: climbing gym instructors, via ferrata guides, top rope climbing instructors, hiking guides. So quite a variety of certifications that we do. But in the mountain stream, which is rock, ice, snow related, you become an apprentice, and then you have 3 years of training and work before you're required to do your full cert in that level. So if you do the math to basically to do your apprentice, two ski courses, apprentice and full, and then to do apprentice rock, apprentice alpine, and alpine exams, you could technically take 3 years in between all of those courses, or even longer, because you could do your snow side, your ski side, and then wait for a bit, and maybe 5, 10, 15 years being a member as a ski guide, and then decide, oh, I want to become a climbing guide and alpine guide, and move into that side of things. So it really varies. But if you wanted to plow through it pretty quickly, I took 4.5 years to do my exams, starting with the apprentice rock and finishing. I think I finished with the alpine guide exam, and did my ski exams all in there in the same 4.5 years. So it's possible to do it in about that time period.
I guess I want to talk a little bit about on the ski side, as we will dive in a little bit to the avalanche side of things. But on the ski guide, that's what does that really entail? Like, you're not teaching people at a ski hill how to ski, are you? You're kind of diving into the backcountry aspect, glacier travel and, navigating through the backcountry as a ski guide. And
Yep, that's true. We are guides and instructors in the disciplines that we work in. You don't necessarily need to be a ski instructor going through the Canadian Ski Instructor Association levels, but it does help coming into the ski courses, because we do have a ski movement standard that you're required to complete in the application process to make sure that you ski well on your own before you come in. And so it does help to have a technical background. I went through, I was a ski racer on the Alberta circuit growing up. And so I was fortunate to get some pretty good technical skill set, but also maybe a few bad racer habits as well. That comes from survival in the gates.
Yeah.
But it did make me a strong skier coming into the ski program, which really helps. And then when we are out there guiding, it's not, I would say, necessary, but it's really good to have some pretty good techniques to pass on to your clients there to make their experience better and essentially safer, if they are falling down less and they're less prone to get injured and tired and have a bad experience and not hire you again too. So
it just leads to an overall better experience for the client that hires you, if you have, a little bit of knowledge on kind of helping critique their abilities, not just on the uphill, but on the downhill.
Yeah, and we also assist our clients with appropriate equipment selection for the given trip that we're doing. So you wouldn't have super skinny, potentially really short skis for heli skiing, where you're generally in fairly deep snow, but you might have those for a hut-to-hut trip, and that might be quite appropriate for having a nice light, fairly narrow ski to travel fast and with less effort. So it comes down to equipment selection as well.
Absolutely. Why would someone want to hire or should hire a mountain guide, or a guide for any discipline, I guess, really? If that's rock, alpine, ski touring, any of that sort of stuff.
Well, we are the experts in mountain terrain and travel and safety. So it is of benefit. You might not be hiring us forever as your guides. You might want to gain your own skill set and knowledge, which we can coach you through and be instructors as well as guides at the same time. Or you can choose to be that client that likes hiring guides and travel, not right now, but potentially in the future, all over the world, as we've done in the past. And yeah, you can actually hire different guides in different countries, or you can travel with your guide from your country, as long as they're meeting all the requirements of the country that they're going to be guiding in.
Right. As a guide yourself, what is the most memorable moment as a guide for you?
Well, it's one of those. It's a pretty memorable career to get into. So that's a difficult question, Mikey. But I did have one client who was getting into ice climbing. Started with some rock climbing that we did together, and she was actually more competent and more experienced in the rock climbing side of things, but she wanted to get into that. And then we took it to the ice climbing arena, and so we ended up doing a multi-pitch ice climb in Jasper. Not terribly difficult, but difficult enough, steep enough for her skill set. And she got near the top, and she was tapping out top of the second pitch, and it was a 2-pitch route. And so I have a choice there to, lower her down and then come back down to her at the top of the first pitch, and we're wrapping out and done. But I said, why don't you just take a little bit of time, rest on the rope a bit. You're in a safe place here. You're probably feeling a little freaked out being up at height here. And I'm pretty sure you can get this. You're almost there. And so she did. She took a breather there, finished, and then she ended up actually writing into to the Mountain Guide newsletter, our association newsletter, with her trip report. And she spoke about exactly that, how she felt challenged to the point of wanting to quit, but how she felt after was this sense of accomplishment. And it's pretty cool to be part of that, where somebody can accomplish what they want to accomplish, but they're not sure they can, and then you literally guide them through to that completion. And yeah, she was stoked.
Yeah. The little bit of tail guiding that I've done in the past, that's probably the things that I remember the most when I was pursuing to the mountain stream and stuff, is just that sense of accomplishment that you receive as the guide when your client achieves something that they didn't know that they could physically achieve, or showing them a new perspective. You're taking a client up that rock face for the first time, in maybe 300 meters or something, and they've never had that perspective before, and they weren't really sure if they'd be able to reach that summit. And that's what I got out of it, was that excitement I got through them, was you see their eyes just glowing, and that smile, it's like ear to ear, and that was definitely one thing that really promoted me to continue on with the process of being a guide. It was completely selfless, is kind of how I describe it, is you're doing it for them and kind of showing them the way, and it's very rewarding on the guide side of things. So now I guess diving into a little bit of the avalanche stuff here. So the snow has started to fly here in Canada. If you're out at the Lake Louise area, they just had a nice little dump of snow sitting on top of a nice crust that's been formed over our 6 weeks without any snow. But with the snow comes avalanche danger in terrain. Can you give a quick description of what an avalanche is and who could be affected by an avalanche?
Well, an avalanche is basically the snow on the mountain having the pull of gravity overcome any friction that's holding it onto that sloping surface. And you can have avalanches on flat terrain. Some of you might have been out walking on a frozen lake with snow on it, or a low angle flat terrain, and you hear this, we call it a whoomph. It's a descriptive technical term. And it's this kind of rolling sound of air coming out of the snow and whoomping under your feet. And sometimes you even feel it drop. And so that is an avalanche. It just doesn't have enough slope to actually slide anywhere. So then you take it up into the varying degrees of terrain and the various ground cover that is on that terrain, whether it's trees, rocks, glacial ice, rock slab, etc. And and then the layers that build up like layer cake in the snow over the year, with warm and cold and wet and dry and different sizes of crystals and more metamorphosis of those crystals. A lot of snow science that goes into this stuff.
A snowflake is not the ones that you draw on the little piece of paper?
Well, they are, and no two are alike.
Yeah, and they don't stay that way.
Nope, but then they change over time. And so it's that combination of gravitational pull, essentially, and us having our stress bulb on the snowpack, or natural avalanches occur, wind, warm temperatures, one snowflake too many, and that can cause a fracture. And then, you get various types of avalanches. Some are wet, some are dry, some propagate a long ways, some are deep, some are more surface avalanches. Point releases, like a snowball coming down and it's just sort of picking up a bit of steam and fanning out, without a whole lot of mass.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot of different types of avalanches out there.
For the my viewers and listeners here that may not understand what propagate means, do you mind diving into that a little bit, or give them an example that they can relate to understand what propagation is?
Yeah, so snow is a real interesting substance because it can be very strong or it can be very brittle and weak. And sometimes that change between strength and bonding and weakness and propagating, the stress moving through the snowpack sideways and a slice of that coming out, it can be not very much of a change in the environment when it actually turns from that position of strength to a position of weakness. So if you think about uh, snow being very elastic at times, we've all seen it kind of coming off of very slowly off of a metal roof, where it's just curling down like this. And it's unbelievable how far it can curl down and slowly be sliding over through the night or the day until it actually breaks off. So that's showing some pretty good strength. And then the other side is more like glass, where if you have a broken, a star in your windshield and you press on it, it's going to shoot out and become a bigger crack and be very brittle and propagate along your windshield. So that's kind of what can happen when the snow is more in that brittle form. And it can go for literally kilometers along ridge lines, wrap around features, propagate through trees where you would think there would be more anchoring there. So yeah, it's hopefully that gives a bit of a picture of
Yeah. Yeah. Who could be affected by avalanches? So is it like, what about a snowshoer? At Valley Bottom, are they at risk of setting off an avalanche or being caught in an avalanche? Like, they're at Valley Bottom. What about a scrambler or ice climber? Or is it just strictly skiers and snowmobilers?
No, it's anyone who's in the snowy environment. It doesn't necessarily need to be just winter either. There's avalanches that happen in the summertime as well. So we have to think about that when we're alpine climbing, mountaineering in the summertime and doing glacier travel. So anybody that's basically in a snowy environment, so think of having snow somewhere up above you, snow under your feet, uh, or yes, snow that can affect you and slide, you're potentially in harm's way. And so we spend a lot of time in the avalanche world looking at terrain and looking at how we can move safely through terrain and choosing terrain where we avoid avalanches because of them falling on us from above, being triggered under our feet, triggered up above us. Um, and so it's not just doing the hardcore skiing, climbing, ice climbing, snowmobiling kind of thing. So there unfortunately have been incidents with snowshoers, just winter walkers, hikers, people tobogganing, are all potentially at risk.
Awesome. All right. So on to the next question here. We have seen a substantial increase in backcountry activity over the years, traditionally. Now, this year, with the onset of COVID, it has, increased that exponentially. I've made an episode on this. I walked into Mech, and this was the first time I ever seen shelves empty, which was a little bit nerve-wracking to say the least. But with this increase of people venturing into the backcountry, can you explain what people should do before heading into the backcountry this winter? And what kind of information do they need except for, hey, I'm going into the backcountry, I'm going to go ski touring and the snow may slide? Well, like, what should they do? How should they outsource information? should they just read a book, or are there better alternative options?
You have a couple choices. You can choose to hire a guide, and they will coach you through what you need to bring, where it's appropriate to go for your skill level. You can be a really strong skier, but not have any knowledge of the backcountry or avalanches, and still it'd be suitable for you to go out with a guide. So that's one avenue. The other avenue is to take a course. So there's a series of courses offered by Avalanche Canada called AST, Avalanche Skills Training. And you can do a variety of levels of that for your own personal knowledge. And it will go through a whole series of progression for learning about avalanches, about the snowpack, about terrain, and then also about the rescue side and equipment side of going out in the mountains.
Right. Okay. So you did mention Avalanche Canada. For the viewers and listeners here from the United States, you can also go to avalanche.org. That'll be the American version of this. And then any, country that you're part of that offers avalanche training. So if that's France, Switzerland, Germany, if you're going into mountainous terrain, outsource the governing body in that jurisdiction. Obviously, we're here in Canada, both Jordy and I, so we're going to be primarily talking about Avalanche Canada. So now there is a additional course, an AST, an Avalanche Safety Training course, level 2. Who is this course intended for? So obviously the AST 1 is just your initial course to get outside, to understand a little bit about snow, a little bit about rescue, a little bit about terrain, and give you some good, valuable, useful information and knowledge. But there's this additional course, the AST 2. So who's this intended for?
So think about the AST1, Avalanche Skills Training 1, as more of your intro to being in the backcountry snow environment. And the AST2 is more of the advanced level. And so you will, it's a longer course, and you spend more time out in avalanche terrain, out looking at avalanche terrain. And it gets more into the decision-making side of things, where you're trying to make decisions, as opposed to the Avalanche Skills Training 1 course, AST1, where it's more about trying to avoid that type of terrain, and therefore avoid having to make those more difficult experienced decisions in avalanche terrain.
Awesome. So moving into ice climbing, as a climber, we tend to migrate to climbing ice when it freezes. Here in Canada, we probably do more, well, in Alberta, we probably do more ice climbing than we do rock climbing, or just seasons naturally longer. And I've had people ask me numerous times, is ice climbing safe? It's a frozen piece of water. It's not a fixed structure. It can melt away, and any of those sort of things. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, ice climbing's it's a different medium than being on the rock, but in some ways it's easier because you're not always looking for a particular hold. You can throw in your axes or throw in your crampons most places on that ice surface, provided it's a nice fat ice floe that you're on. But it does come with reading the ice, reading the temperatures, and then also recognizing that not all, but a lot of ice climbs are in avalanche terrain. That's where water flows in these gullies, sometimes from quite high up. And we have some very long multi-pitch ice routes available to us here in the local area. And what comes with that is in between, often or above it, large fields or pockets of snow that can avalanche. And just like the water that's frozen that you're on, that's flowed down, drip down, and frozen, that's where the snow is going to go as well. And then you have the complication of if you are buried in a gully, if we call it a terrain trap, it doesn't take a whole lot of snow to pile up fairly deep in those confined gullies.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
to answer your question, ice climbing can be absolutely safe when done in an appropriate setting at the appropriate time on the appropriate route. And again, that's where to get into it, it's probably worth taking a course. There are guides, ACMG guides offer instructional courses, intro to ice climbing all the time. And that's probably a really good place to start. You get the basics of the equipment, the basics of anchors, and then you can start to maybe move out and do a little bit more on your own after that.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to be part of many of these intro to ice and intro to rock courses. And, for that person that's going from an indoor rock climbing and wall climbing experience to an outdoor rock climbing experience or an ice climbing experience for the first time, I'll always be the first person to recommend someone to hire a guide, get on a course, because the good thing about the ACMG and the system that's in place there is that these guides are the professionals in that space. They are the ones that have been certified, examined, deemed competent to, instruct and supervise in that space. Operating in the mountains is nothing like, operating on a side of a building, washing windows. The environment is completely different. The hazards are completely different. And just understanding how to mitigate these hazards are things that can be taught, but, you might as well get the information from the source. A lot of people that are like, oh, well, my friend, has done a lot of ice climbing or a lot of rock climbing. I'll just go with them. That's great. That's helpful. But hiring a guide will definitely benefit you on that aspect that, these guides have to do professional development every year. They have to maintain their certification. And, as the time is changing and new equipment's coming out, new, policies and procedures are coming out, they're being updated to then, relay that onto the clients out there. And if you are the new person out there, you're getting the most up-to-date, safest way of doing it. So, all right, a little bit of a personal question here. Are you more of a rock climber or an ice climber? Which one do you like more?
I kind of like it all, but I have in the winter, I've been focusing more on skiing and avalanche training for
Mm-hmm.
folks, professionals and for recreational people. Um, so yeah, I'd have to say probably more rock climbing at this point, but it really varies. There was a time where I was really focused on ice climbing too. So yeah, it comes and goes. And then the nice thing about being a mountain guide is I am certified to go into all of these different terrain styles, winter and summer. And so with my clients, it's what tickles their fancy, and then we off we go and do that. So it's nice to be able to be quite varied in the disciplines.
Absolutely. You're part of the Canadian Avalanche Association and being involved with, you know, the organization and not just a member of the association. How's that being affected this year with COVID and the increase of people going into the backcountry? What are some of the things that you're noticing?
So from the professional side, I'm a professional member of the Canadian Avalanche Association, and I'm also an instructor for them. I've helped develop the AVSAR, we call it, Avalanche Search and Rescue Advanced Skills course that we deliver. I'm actually delivering one next week in Golden to a group of people who are they're partway through their professional level of avalanche courses, and the AVSAR Advanced Skills course is a prerequisite for their forecaster level of becoming an avalanche professional courses. So we're seeing, in terms of COVID, we've had to change a little bit about what we're doing as instructors. we've got lots of precautions in place. The Avalanche Association had to find larger venues so that we can have physical distancing between students when we're in the classroom setting. We're wearing masks in the classroom setting, hand sanitizing, all that kind of stuff. Equipment gets sanitized as required. And then for our outdoor courses, portion of the courses as well, we're having to change things. And we often do them at ski hills. And of course, ski hills have had to alter how they do business too. So, but it's a real dynamic environment. Yeah, anything could change at any time. We feel fortunate, and I feel very fortunate for our students who are doing this for professional development to become professionals in the industry. We got shut down last March. Some courses got cut short, but we're making up for it this winter so far. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue to deliver the roster of courses and people be able to get through it so they can move on with their careers and what they want to do.
Yeah, it's been a challenging year for all industries. And, these extra protocols are making it, stressful for organizations that have to mandate these new protocols. And, there's no right answer. It's just everyone's comfort is different. But when it's going into the backcountry, you're looking at the rescue side of things, and it just complicates it too. Is you may end up having to be in a position where you're going to have to rescue someone. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but you just never know. And obviously the social distancing and the rescue side of things is definitely going to make it challenging, and people's comfort is going to be hindered as well. So it'll be interesting to see what comes at the end of the year, and just kind of do like a review of, what experiences did guides face this year, and how were the clients in relation to the protocols, how did they deal with it, and, how accepting of everything it was for them. So I think the mechanized industry will definitely take a hard hit with it, because you can't just stuff 8 people into a helicopter anymore, or into a back of a cat.
So yeah, well, they're Helicat Canada, as I understand it, the association that governs helicopter skiing and cat skiing, they've come up with protocols as well. Mm-hmm. And with precautions, it's still potentially doable. But there's also the whole lodge-based side of things too, yeah, and sleeping accommodations and meals and how all that works. So there's lots of moving parts there in that industry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for your time. If anyone is interested in looking you up, how can they do that? How can they reach out to you? Facebook, Instagram? What's the best way?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to throw out a couple of resources for folks that are interested in the backcountry. So Avalanche Canada, if you go to their website, they provide avalanche forecasts for the various regions in Canada. So that's real important information that gets updated. There's also the Mountain Information Network, where members of the public can actually submit their observations. It's called the MIN, Mountain Information Network. And you do that through the Avalanche Canada website as well. And that helps all of us professionals and forecasters at Avalanche Canada to do a better job, because they're not always out in the field right there where there might be an avalanche observed, or conditions changing, or snowfall amounts, etc. And then there's also the the Alpine Club of Canada. And so that's a bunch of guides do instruction for the Alpine Club of Canada for their various course levels that they offer: avalanche courses, climbing courses, skiing courses. But then it also puts you into that club setting where you can go out with recreational trip leaders who have been trained and had some vetting through the Alpine Club, in terms of going out with a group of like-minded individuals but with some, sort of sense of safety precautions too, and knowing what other people's experience is. So hopefully being able to do it in the club setting, but also in a safe way too. So that's the Alpine Club of Canada is a good option for that.
Awesome. Thank you.
For myself, for getting a hold of me, I run my own guiding business, peakalpine.com. So easy to find there. Jordy Mountain Guide, MTN Guide for Instagram. Jordy Canmore, I think I am for my guiding business on Facebook. But yeah, Jordy, Jordy, and then spelled properly, Sheperd. If you search that, I'm not hard to find. And then you'll also see that I'm a licensed realtor in Canmore with Royal LePage, so I can help you with all your mountain home needs.
Awesome.
Motto is with my business partner, I is guiding you home.
Nice.
And I also you'll see things that I do with Backcountry Access. I'm a professional ambassador for Backcountry Access, which provides is a manufacturer of Avalanche and backcountry safety equipment. And so I have input with them into the professional world, getting their equipment out there. And then I've also helped develop techniques through that avenue as well, and helping give input into new avalanche search and rescue equipment.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much again. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Mikey.
Cheers. All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always good to, kind of go back to my roots of being in that pursuit of being a mountain guide, and, diving into a little bit of a different industry from what we're normally used to here on this platform. Obviously, this is my first mountain guide that I've had the luxury of being able to talk to here on this channel, but I definitely look forward to chatting with more mountain guides in the future. All right. So if you like this episode, please make sure to like it, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell for notifications, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and I will see you on the next one.